Like killing a snake by choking it from its head, Fanatics has killed Stockx, and Stockx is nothing but a bloody carcass. So it's really sad, the 70 to 75 years of vintage and history, the constant association of baseball cards with the Stockx brand, the number of iconic cards and sets that Stockx has created. It really is sad. Especially if for some reason the legacy of the brand isn't able to continue through some sort of special licensing or contracting arrangement, or if Stockx isn't purchased by Fanatics and we're truly seeing the end of Stockx and all of Stockx's brands. That's quite a lot. But if we're to step this back a little bit and take a look at it from a different angle, Stockx really didn't deserve to be in the position it was in. Stockx has failed to reinvent themselves, has failed to grow during a time when the hobby has gone mainstream. And I think, when the whole Muds SPAC arrangement, when we started to first hear news of that, some of the financials were published with Stockx, and you could tell that Stockx, up till the end of 2019, they were more profitable with gum sales than they were selling cards. So you have all of this new investment in this industry, especially over the last probably 12 to 18 months, on the distribution side, probably not talking about distributors here, but more with like all of the exchanges like Stockx and StarStock, and access to cards as investments with the advent of the fractional companies and them getting in sports cards like the Rally Roads, the Otises, and the collectibles. And then you also have the data / analytics tools. There's a number of those still springing up, card ladder market movers being some of the more notable ones. And then you have the investment through grading companies, but like with this industry, you would assume that the manufacturing side of it, the side of the business that's actually printing the money that everybody's profiting on, that they would be perhaps in the most lucrative position. And sure, they backed themselves into a position where their license was worth a lot, but there wasn't really much that they could preserve or do to preserve that at the end of the day. And that's unfortunate, because the timing was perfect. The deal to go public was supposed to be next week for Stockx. Now that's completely off the table, as I'm sure most of you guys have been informed of. The arrangement to go public has been canceled. They're calling it some mutual agreement, but the valuation of Stockx obviously tumbled after the licensing was pulled from underneath them. The MLB and MLBPA licensing, to be specific. So MLB is going to be in effect 2026. That's when Fanatics gets it, I believe. I think in 2024 or 2023 is when the MLBPA license gets handed over to Fanatics. So, we could break down the motivations from Fanatics to do this, but we're not going to do that in this video. But I think a lot of it has to do with control for the leagues, and a lot of it has to do with money. It's all about the money. So on the bright side, this won't be in effect fully for about 5 years. What should we expect in the meantime? Print runs from Stockx, Panini, and others. They're no longer in the position of having, whether they treated it seriously or not, having accountability over the industry and the long-term preservation of that industry. So you could probably see some print runs coming up. Does Stockx get purchased by Fanatics? I think there's varying opinions of that. And if they don't get outright purchased, is there some sort of a licensing agreement to get a hold of their intellectual property, of all the designs that they've worked so hard to build, of their brands, and getting control over their brands? I'd say I mean, I'm not an expert here, but maybe 65%, 35% in favor of yes, they somehow find a way to at least have some continuity with the Topps brands and not absolutely kill them. Does Fanatics want to build infrastructure from scratch? They're not a card company. Do they want to build the whole manufacturer assembly line process? Do they want to build out all of these unique brands from scratch without any help, knowing that they can probably get one foot in the door, get some help ushering into a new business with a pre-established brand? I would assume that it makes more sense to try to make a play for buying Topps, especially since now, can they really survive on their own with licenses to UFC, wrestling, and soccer? And they don't even have all the soccer. They have some of it, but I don't know. I think that they're in a tough place right now, and I think it's in Fanatics' best interest probably to try to scoop them up as soon as possible. So we might see that in the next year or so. But if Fanatics is to build out all their own brands, they do have some time to do so. They do have roughly 5 years to do that. So I guess we'll see. But definitely keep an eye out for future acquisitions. So I was listening to Ken Golden live a few nights ago, and he was suggesting that instead of Fanatics making a play to buy Panini, they should instead try to go after Topps and also Upper Deck. Because Upper Deck is a cheaper company than Panini. Panini's valued at around, I think, a little over $3 billion at this point, or they were before they lost the license. Upper Deck is a much smaller company. And Upper Deck also has a longer history. They're viewed quite favorably for basketball. So Topps used to have a license for basketball. And if you are to go after Topps and Upper Deck, if you think about just basketball, taking football off the table for now, they've got quite an advantage with those two brands. If you look at like the early 2000s and how collectors viewed those brands. Now, Panini, of course, is viewed quite favorably today, especially by some of the people that are newer to the hobby, or even people like myself that really like shiny stuff. But maybe, maybe they don't need to. Especially if Panini cards don't have licenses. Topps Chrome comes back, brings back that shine. It'll be interesting, guys. That'll be very interesting. But yeah, I mean, I would expect if they were to work out some sort of deal with at least Topps, then I would expect Topps Chrome to be printed again across the three major sports. Bowman Chrome, I'm not sure what would happen there, but that brand would live on, which would be awesome, especially if you're a prospector on the baseball side. Topps Finest maybe is another brand that they choose to print across all the sports, although the brand strength of that has gone down quite a bit now that it's focused on just baseball. It's not one of the top products anymore. It's kind of lost its identity. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. Actually, there's a little nuance here. I'm not sure how many people have thought about this, but the MLBPA license, it expires and it gets handed over to Fanatics, I think 2 or 3 years earlier than the MLB license. So it's going to be kind of tricky. I think it's 2024 and 2025 where Fanatics will own the MLBPA license, but Topps will own the MLB license. So to print cards with mascots on them or logos on them for Topps, it might require like some sort of logistical madness with them needing to like work out deals with each of the players. I'm not sure how that would work. But at that point, and I've been kind of a long-term believer in the Panini Prism unlicensed cards, but good chance that those are killed altogether, which would be unfortunate. And it all depends on kind of what happens with acquisitions and stuff, and how strongly Panini is viewed as a brand if Panini actually does get purchased at some point by Fanatics. But yeah, so craziness. So let's talk about some of the benefits from this. I think we've talked about the negative stuff quite a lot, and we'll probably get into some more negative stuff at the end of this video. Positive stuff, Fanatics is a strong company. They have far superior marketing and reach than Topps and Panini combined. The deal now with players and leagues getting a percentage of profits with basketball as well as baseball, both the leagues and the players are getting a percentage. With football, I think it's just the leagues that are getting cut into some sort of equity. It allows for stronger integration of efforts and stronger alignment of incentives. So I think that the leagues and the card company being Fanatics, I think that they'll work together to get more kids into baseball. They'll be able to work together on some larger growth initiatives. I've talked about this before on my channel, I think in brief, but it's not just about using sports to get children into trading cards and becoming collectors, but also you can use trading cards as a tool to get kids into sports. So if Fanatics understands that, which I think they will, that should certainly help the future of the hobby and the total amount of interest in the hobby. If you don't think that the hobby has gone mainstream yet, Fanatics has the ability to take that to a separate level, I think, to a new level. Given that everything so far has been all about the money, one of my fears is that they cut the number of products, because you have to think economies of scale and profit margins. It's probably more profitable for a company like Fanatics to print fewer products and to jack up the print runs across those products higher. So all in all, you'll have a greater number of cards produced just over a fewer amount of product. There's a lot of products out there that I'm not incredibly fond of. They don't do a whole lot for me. I don't really buy them, but I think they do serve a purpose. They go after a certain niche in the hobby, and they also prevent some of the more sought after products from needing to be printed more than they currently are. So changing that dynamic, I think, will hurt more than it'll help, especially if they do cut out some products that a lot of people like on the football and on the basketball side. Like, what if they decide to cut out Mosaic? Again, this is assuming that Fanatics buys Panini. What if they cut out, I don't know, like Prestige, Phoenix? There's some products that a lot of the newer folks that are in the hobby really enjoy, some of those newer products. So now that we're talking about kind of persistence of brands, one of the things that I'm slightly worried about is, and it's not just if it happens, but it's also speculation that it'll happen. That could also drive values down, I think, of certain cards. There's a certain amount of like, basically the way we value cards sometimes, it's under the assumption that there's some continuity there, that there's going to be another one printed the next year that'll kind of solidify its place and having some sort of credence in the hobby. This is going to be something that will just get more and more popular over the years. And basically what I'm trying to say is that some of these newer, more contrived, even though they're rare, inserts or parallels, they do hold a lot of value. I'm thinking like Downtown, Stained Glass, Mosaic. Thinking something like the animal cards, the zoo cards from Select, like the tiger and the zebra prisms. I'm thinking the Color Blast a little bit here. Maybe some of the more like manufactured colors from like Bowman and Topps, like we've got an Aqua now, we've got Waves and Shimmers. If those aren't continued, then I feel like maybe they won't be as desirable years to come. And there's certain, like with Panini not having incredibly long history, I think there are certain things about it that will carry over, like a Panini Prism Silver. That can be kind of related to refractors, and refractors are never going to go away unless they get rid of Optichrome, right? Because people just love the shiniest, nicest looking inserts of a set, and for a lot of people, that's the regular refractor and silver prism. So I think that's probably safe, but I am a little bit worried about some of the more, again, contrived and manufactured inserts that haven't been around for super long. And again, some of the products too, I think they're at greater risk to be cut if they're not like in like the top 5 or 10 hottest releases of the year, or releases that have been kind of had like that longest history. Some other things to look forward to, potentially higher prices for wax. Fanatics has a very strong online distribution model, so I would expect maybe all retail configurations being sold directly through Fanatics. Fanatics does have some pre-existing store locations, so how important are LCSs going forward? I think a lot of that depends on the chosen bifurcation between the hobby product and the retail product. Seems to be a system that works in that there's kind of a need for both of those types of configurations. But with the changes to a distribution model, I think a lot of people are kind of discounting or dismissing this. Josh Luber is an outside-the-box thinker. He's a builder of sorts, and sports cards as we know it and the way they're distributed could change a lot. It could be completely overhauled. If you look at it from a distributor standpoint, like Blowout and DA Card World, like how do they play into this new model? How do all the other distributors play in this model? How do like wax-dependent LCSs fit into this model? How do breakers that buy direct from the manufacturer or from distributors, how do they play into this model? How is that going to all move forward? The distribution model is something that could change a lot. If you look at what Josh Luber did at Stockx, he created a secondary marketplace, and he did it for sneakers. He did it for some other consumer goods, I believe, and then he rolled it out for cards. So a lot of people out there are saying that, well, he's a hobby guy, he's a card guy, he's been successful in cards. Maybe not completely accurate. I think Stockx was very successful, but the rollout specifically pertaining to cards, maybe mildly successful. I don't think it was wildly successful. Again, it's been something that he's been doing for about a year. I think he actually removed himself as CEO probably around that time where the card rollout happened, or maybe slightly even before that. I'm not sure. But there are very few people that I know that use Stockx as a primary platform. I know of it. I use it. Sometimes I check it for prices. I've never bought anything from there, so maybe I'm not the right person to talk about this, but I believe they were much more successful with sneakers than they were with cards. Now, Josh, and I've watched a few of the interviews that he's been in with some of the hobby people, insiders and such, and one of the ways for Stockx to create value and to be profitable was through primary market endeavors. So they didn't just want to be the secondary marketplace, but with Bowman Chrome X, and I believe with Adidas, and with probably some other limited releases, not just confined to sports cards, but they tried to be the primary marketplace where that would first get pushed to the market, that item, and where price discovery would kind of happen based on supply and demand naturally through that system. Bowman Chrome X is something that, I don't think it was a failure. It was something that a lot of people weren't used to. It was a new product, which people always have cold feet with. But I don't know. A lot of people are saying like, oh, if Josh Luber's like, if he's the guy that's going to be head of cards at Fanatics, like there's no way that this can fail. And I know he's very smart. I know he's created a couple other card companies since Stockx. One of them I think was a fun company. One was one that he couldn't mention, at least when he was interviewed by Jeff Wilson. And maybe somebody like him who's very open-minded, who's entrepreneurial, again, an outside-the-box thinker. He's a guy that has said time and time again that what interests him is the blend of e-commerce and finance, and that lend itself well to kind of the secondary marketplace with Stockx and the application of cards there. But manufacturing is a completely different business. So it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Does it make sense for them to buy that expertise, that infrastructure with some of those pre-established card companies, or is that just going to create more headaches? Because that's going to have some integration pain as well, especially if you're to acquire more than one card company. even though you do have a number of years to kind of figure that out. So we'll see. Do you want to learn it on your own, or do you want to buy that knowledge from somebody else? All right, so with Josh Luber, again, I think a lot of people are kind of dismissing how transformative this change could be, in that the way we know cards and the way they're distributed, like I say, could change drastically, in the way LCSs and distributors and how all that operates today could change drastically. If there are some significant changes to the distribution side of things and the market making creation side of things, you can't really ever expect eBay to go away. I mean, Fanatics isn't going to be able to cancel Instagram or anything like that, but I would expect more innovative, creative mechanisms for Fanatics, this new company, to profit, or newer to cards, they're not a new company, but they're newer to cards, to profit from the initial sale. So, could they buy a company like Loop and try to take advantage of that breaking business? Maybe. I don't think anything's off the table. This is a very, very big company. I think about $18 billion was their valuation this week. So, but certainly there could be like more cards that are slabbed through them or something, that are sold directly from their site. More online gimmicky type things that Topps and Panini does, and maybe they're not perceived as a gimmick because it's like a bigger part of what they do. I really don't know what to expect. But also, some people have already considered this on like blowout forums I've seen. What if there's more of a push for digital cards? Digital cards, clearly the way that Topps was spinning it as part of the SPAC deal, sales pitch, etc., their idea was to capture some sort of profit from every single transaction, right? And Josh Luber's not dumb. He understands this. And NFTs would allow for that manufacturer to have full control over the entire lineage of that card when it gets sold from the marketplace to, it's not a distributor anymore, it's buyer number one, to buyer/consumer number 2 to number 3. They could get a cut off of each one of those transactions. So is there a reason to make a push for that? And again, we're looking forward 5 years. So the mass adoption for NFTs, is that going to grow or decrease in 5 years? Again, we're looking forward here, not backwards, or not in the current times even. So I think NFTs will undoubtedly be part of the realm of what they want to do. I just don't know what that balance is going to be. Is it going to be 50% NFTs, 50% physical cards from a revenue perspective, or forecasted revenue perspective, or is it going to be 75-25? I think one of the things that helps is that Josh Luber went on record in one of the interviews I watched. He doesn't own a whole lot of NFTs. He owns a few. I think he was thinking about like the V-Friends, and he also owned one of the original Crypto Punks. But he said that he doesn't see the investment potential in NFTs compared to physical cards. And this was about 2 months ago where this interview happened. He did say that he sees the most utility when there's an NFT linked to a physical asset. So there could be something there, and something he tries to play with going forward. I don't know. This guy's smarter than a lot of us, smarter than me, so maybe he figures it out, but it's not a guarantee. All right, guys, let me know your thoughts. I know that's a lot. Let me know what you agree with, what you disagree with, what your feelings are. Is this good for the hobby? Is this bad for the hobby? I don't think it's going to kill the hobby, but other than that, I don't know. All right, guys, take care. Filmington out.